Welcome to Happy Talks with Dr. Alice and Donovan. Dr. Alice Fong is a holistic naturopathic doctor and founder of Amor de Soi Wellness. And Donovan Jensen is a software engineer and founder of HowToHappy.com. Together, they're out to cause more happiness in the world.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Happy Talks. Today, I am super excited to introduce our guest today, Stu Zimmerman. He has a really fascinating story. He is a reformed hedge fund manager turned into Only the Source LLC founder, which is about creating transformational audio and video programs for over 20 years, which is really exciting and fascinating. So please welcome Stu. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, Alice, Donovan. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. So I'm just curious, how did that happen? How did your journey take you from hedge fund manager to founder of Only the Source?
Yeah, I think I used to be normal. And actually, it was about 21 years ago that at the peak of my financial success as a hedge fund manager, having been in that business, the money management business, stockbroker, what have you, for about 18 years, my wife was diagnosed with cancer and actually a recurrence of cancer. And the chemo and radiation was so toxic to her system. And that her quality of life was really bad. And it was really clear that this juxtaposition of making more money than I ever thought I would, and it not buying me and my family what we thought it would, it was so kind of contrary to what I thought the script of my life was supposed to be. That not only did it bring me to my knees energetically, it really had me starting to ask some questions, including the who am I, why am I here? As well as what is this thing about money, wealth, and security all about that not only am I reasonably obsessed with, but the smartest people I knew in the world, all over the world, were even more obsessed about money than I was. And I came up with some answers that took me out of the stock market and frankly, to focus on the kind of wealth that money can't buy.
Wonderful. So tell me a little more about Only the Source. What is it exactly and what does it entail?
Yeah, it's a media company. I've had a few programs that I've developed and participated in over the last 15, 18 years, culminating with Only the Source, which has created a number of short form videos. And I'll say short form meaning 3 minutes or less. Little skits. One of the things that we've been creating is a few new words that point to the world that we want to live in, because we may need some new words. So we created some videos that define and illustrate new words like be-weaving, which we define as a unified state of being in which you can't discern where one ends and another begins. So it's kind of be-weaving. And we shot that in the Redwoods in Occidental in Northern California to show how those are living examples of how their root systems are completely intertwined, just really beneath the forest floor, even as they appear to be independent individual trees. And another one like Yessence, that essence of yes, being all in, going all out, and just high vibe kind of words. In fact, a little bit of a spoiler alert, it's not at all on our website, so you can't see this yet, but we are creating what's called a Sizzle Reel. It's like a trailer to the movie of a video series that will be pitched to Netflix and the other streaming services later this year. And it's kind of like a conscious version of Saturday Night Live. It has skits, humor, and also practices to make it practical for people to enjoy their lives more. And the name of the program is, with a little bit of drum roll, Better Than Sex. So,
oh, I love it.
It's a high bar, and we're dedicated to offering really high quality entertainment that is thought-provoking, heart-opening, and very much useful to help raise one's experience of daily life.
So I want to dive in on that a little bit. It sounds like kind of the path was through this sort of money-centric place, and then you found that it wasn't quite getting you the things out of life that you wanted. Do you feel like there's a underlying theme in kind of the projects that you're putting together in terms of, is it holistic life? Do you think it focuses more on some of the money parts? Is it like a mix? I'd just be curious what you think is like the big driving goal or vision under some of these projects.
Yeah. Thank you, Donovan. Yeah, the underlying goal is to raise one's quality of life. And so it very much is holistic, where it's emotional, it's mental, it's physical, it's spiritual, it's every aspect of life, from the personal, how we view ourselves, the interpersonal in terms of how we connect in relationship with others, to the transpersonal, which is our connection with something greater than all of us.
So it's definitely a much bigger, that's the path that started you there, but that's not the destination or the like specialization. It's definitely a much more broad, encompassing set of things that you're trying to capture.
Oh yeah, and I kind of knew it at the time, I mean, like I knew at the time, way back when, Exxon, for example, had this Valdez oil spill, and a number of the oil companies were, really not doing their part for the environment and squeezing out every last billion they possibly could, and maybe they still are. But I noticed that when I was a hedge fund manager, if I thought that Exxon was going up the next day, I was going to buy it and be a stock owner in that stock, at least for the day, because my charter was to make as much money in as short a period as I could. And so I knew that I was kind of out of integrity with my personal sense of values. And I felt like, you know what, there's time for personal values later. Right now, it's about accumulation. And that's how I treat it. It's like playing the game, if you will. And then it got to the point where, and even back then, I'm talking about in the 90s, even in the late 80s, us in the stock market, we used to call it the daily lie. Because we knew that CEOs weren't telling us what they really knew. The Wall Street analysts covering these companies didn't really tell us what they really knew. The investment bankers who were bringing these companies public weren't telling us what they knew. And it was just this massive shell game of who's going to share what half-truth in order to get what they want. And, it was like there's a book written about it called Den of Thieves. And so it kind of very much felt that way, even as, I was a nice guy.
Yeah, it seems like, and I don't know how it was before, but it seems like now you have this like very glowing, like radiant energy coming from you now. I don't know how it was before, but I know at the very least, it sounds like an environment that would have put pressure against that, if that was your natural state of being. So I'd be curious what things maybe you found that have allowed you to unlock that a little bit more, or if it was already part of your nature to like kind of get some of the environmental pressures away so you could open up more.
Yeah, thank you. It was a lot of everything in that, in terms of one, having some sense of addition through subtraction, because as you can imagine, reasonably high stress job. My name is on the door. People are expecting returns from me on a monthly or certainly a quarterly basis. And, it's like never any rest for the weary in terms of that goes. And in learning the limits of what money can buy, and learning and becoming really clear that what I really want is to be in this, and thank you for pointing this out, this kind of radiant kind of vibration, which really informs my entire experience of life and becomes less conditional on what it looks like, whether it's making 6, 7 figures or whatever, and more a matter of like being able to appreciate beauty, as one example, where I was too busy to really appreciate that. And even if I was in a beautiful natural setting, or even spending time with my young children at the time, I always had at least half a mind wondering, where is Microsoft going to trade tomorrow? What are my Cisco systems? What are my positions going to be doing? And so with that, I can't say I wasn't fully present, because I wasn't fully present to, what was going around me in the moment. And so, and it's a practice, and it's taken a while to get to this level of, and I have my moments, don't get me wrong, And what I'm really clear is that wealth, for example, is not a number. It's a state of being. A state of being where, I'll speak for myself, where I am more than enough. Whatever I have in physical possession is more than enough. And with that, there's a sense of both relief and joy that I actually get to share whatever it is that I have and whatever it is that I am energetically to help share the wealth and spread it around. Because we're interconnected.
Beautifully expressed. I love it. Yes. And I definitely, like Donovan, I feel those glowing vibes from you, just like this radiance, really, that's very profound. And how, like, I get that you've done a ton of work to get to this point, obviously, to let your light shine bright. It's like, if someone was like in the dark of all of that, what are some like basic tools that you would suggest to kind of get them out of that like grumbly energy into a lighter, brighter, happier?
The good news is there are so many tools, and one size does not fit all. Cool. So there's plenty to choose from that people can do. And when we're talking about this radiant energy, by many measures, it's nothing more than biochemistry that sends neurotransmitters through the body that feel delightful.
Yeah.
And so I would offer anybody who is really in a deep sense of contraction, whether it's fear or anger or worry, and there's plenty of it around from a lot of different angles, whether it's economic or health, for example, seem to be the two primary that a lot of people are facing right now. Just start asking yourself, what choice or choices do I have right now? And survey says we have a lot more than we ordinarily believe. And to that extent, just shifting, I'll speak for myself, just shifting how I breathe to go to a deeper and slower breath than I had been, I notice within a couple of minutes that I feel different in my body. I feel more spaciousness, as an example. Speaking of radiance, I happen to be a bit of a sun worshiper. So, hence the tan. Although I did have some genetic help with this one. And there is something, the sun, as far as I'm concerned, is like the physical representation. If there's one physical representation of the source of all things, call it God or whatever, I view it as the sun. Because I know that we would not exist. No life on this planet would exist without it. And I actually did a little video around it on the website. It's called Praise the Rays. And in this video, I mentioned two aspects of the sun that really strike me. One is that to me, it's like unconditional love. Because no matter what we do, no matter how much we seem to screw up, the sun still shines and provides for our existence every single day. And two, no matter how much sun I could possibly want to soak up, there's always enough for the next person. So to me, that represents abundance. So between unconditional love and abundance, oh, and by the way, yes, there are some biochemical reactions that happen, whether it's through vitamin D or how the sun actually gets absorbed into the, through the skin. That is just something else that I notice really helps to shift my energy. And I actually ask, and I do that in the video as well, that maybe I can be radiant like the sun and just shine and share it just because it's a blessing that I or any of us get to exist.
I love it. Yeah, I had never made that association of, connecting the sun, and it is abundance, essentially. Yeah, there's enough sun to go around, really. And the unconditional love aspect, it's like, yeah, we can all have access to the sun. Well, I mean, location makes a difference. That makes sense.
And my sense is, with solar energy,
solar
if
energy.
you really want to take it a step further, if there really was the will, the economic will to make it happen, solar energy, as one example, could be so more ubiquitous than it is, and provide so much more energy. In fact, it could even be provided free if the will were there.
Yeah.
I mean, the technology exists. And now it's just simply a matter of, are people willing to do it and not feel like they need to, hoard dollar bills in exchange.
I'm just curious though, what about, because actually I used to live in Seattle where like 9 months of the year it's dark and gray. So what would you suggest to people who don't get the abundance of sun like us in California and Arizona? Like,
well, I guess the real truth is I don't know enough about the science to be able to say. And I don't know enough about the science to know what is can be transported. I mean, maybe California, Nevada, maybe they can create so much solar energy that it can find its way transported the way an oil pipeline is.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. And I'm sure that, to that extent, there's also wind and other forms of renewable energy that maybe Seattle, as an example, could have access to.
Who knows?
But my sense is, if enough money were put into its exploration, I'm sure that we could find a solution. If the mandate was everybody in the world deserves free energy, we'd probably be able to do it in pretty short order.
True.
However that looks, whether it's wind, whether it's solar, what have you.
So there's something I was curious about. I'm going to pull us back a couple.
Go ahead. Reel me in.
Running through my mind. You mentioned one of the things that really helped you was tuning in to being more present. And I kind of want to give the same scenario that Dr. Alice did, where like, if I'm feeling that way in my life, right? Like, let's say I'm just going from thing to thing. Maybe I have a high pressure job, something like that. And there's this constant hum going off on the side while I'm trying to do other things. What advice would you give somebody who's in that position? Maybe like a first step or some kind of tactic or some ideas that might be able to get them from, that place to closer to where you are. Again, I know it's a lot of work, but maybe just one little nugget.
I would say spend more time in nature is one thing. And again, there's also a biochemical response that occurs when we do. And even something as simple as laying down on the ground, staring up at the sky. Maybe you haven't done that since you were a kid. And it's an interesting thing about the Earth and its own electromagnetic field, that when we come into that kind of closer connection with it, not only does it shift ours, but it can also strangely absorb some of that contracted energy and that negative feeling that we seem to have. So if we're ever really stressed out, frequently we can be, just laying down on the earth and staring up at the sky, and even going like into a starfish position, and just say, you know what, just take it, and just take the energy from me. And so I can be here to serve a higher cause. Oh, which reminds me that actually having a sense of higher purpose, I notice really helps. And that higher purpose can be something as simple as share love, share smiles. And smiling is another thing. And that's actually one of my practices, where I'll smile even for no particular reason. And I've actually done a little bit of research on it. And there was a neurologist in the late 1800s in France called Duchenne. And there's a thing called the Duchenne Smile, where you get your eyes, and he called it like the ocular orbital muscles or whatever, and get them involved in a smile. And it sends signals through the body that your body is out of harm's way. And there's a sense of relief that comes with that, and a sense of positive feeling that comes with that. So I would invite everybody to just smile more often and just notice what happens. And as we do know, smiles are kind of contagious. I have a video around that one also called 100 Smiles an Hour. So, you can check that out. It's all on our website on onlythesource.com.
Cool.
Sounds really interesting.
I really like it because first of all, it's two things, but the first one is they're both very like practical and tangible, right? Going out and laying and looking at the stars is probably, like you were saying, something that we don't really ever do, or like most people don't do very often.
Yeah.
Well, it's a nice way to shake up the routine. Because I know for me, when I've had that like nagging, here's this other thing, here's this other thing, here's this other thing, here's this other thing, I'm usually going through kind of more routine parts of my day. And when I break out into something, which can, like you said, can be very simple, just laying on the ground, that allows my mind to go, oh, this is new. It's something I've done before, but it's new in the sense of I don't do it very often. And that actually captures the attention fully. And that, that specific thing I haven't done anytime soon. So maybe I will do it soon and give it a shot and see like that clears things out. The other thing I love that is just like you were saying with smiling, it's so easy to do. And there are, physical effects beyond, or I guess mental effects just beyond the physical, you put the smile on, there are actually changes that happen in your psyche. And I just think those are two very useful ideas for the question I asked. So you definitely answered it.
Oh, good. Yeah. And again, one size doesn't fit all.
Right.
So to that extent, if laying down on the ground, especially if you're in an urban environment right now, maybe that's not so accessible even, not your thing, it's okay. There's plenty of other things to choose from. And that's the point I really want to get across, is that we do have choice in every moment. And it's simply a matter of, can we remember that we do? And it's not to say there's anything wrong with getting pissed off or being angry or being sad or depressed. Or let's just consider that all of them are nothing more than how we describe the energy that's going through our body, and letting go of the whole story around what triggered it and all the reasons why it should or shouldn't be the case, how that feeling is. But just notice that ultimately all that our experience of life is going from one energetic experience to another that we describe as our emotions. And that's why we say, I'm happy or I'm sad. It's really all we're doing is trying to describe how it feels to be in the body in this particular moment in time.
Right.
And we have a range of a spectrum of energies that we have access to, all the way to cursing God, to being on our knees, thanking God that we get to exist, and everything in between.
Yeah, I really enjoyed your tips, because that just made me think about, I don't lie on the ground that often out in nature. I only think about when was the last time I did that? That kind of almost seems unfortunate to me that I can't even really remember. And it's probably, but what comes to my mind is when I'm able to do that, it's usually when I'm at the beach and I'm so in my happy place at the beach. And it's just like, wow, I don't have to necessarily drive all the way to the beach. I have a lawn. I could lie out on the lawn and just be with the nature in the sky. But I think it's just being intentional and bringing awareness to that is my choice in that moment. And I don't even think about that. And it's just like that opening up my mind to be like, wow, there are so many different choices in every moment that so many choices that it just never even occurs to me. So it's just like nice to pull these little nuggets from, if you really just take a moment and be present, then all these various choices can really come to you, and you wouldn't even think about it if you didn't just take a moment for yourself.
Yeah, whatever it is that gives you joy. I mean, I go out and do some ecstatic dance once a week. And that's also something that just feels so good. I just kind of flowing, I just dissolve into some kind of energy wave, and it just feels great. Yeah. It's whatever that works for you. And there is some, changing your breath pattern, making sounds, whether it's singing or just toning and sounding like a drooling fool can actually send energy waves and dislodge that static energy that we retain in our physical bodies and the nervous system, as well as also stimulating, again, some biochemistry that feels kind of good. So there's a lot of things we could be doing, and that's the fun that we get to explore them.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you brought up kind of the strategic level of like, not one thing works for every person, but it's very important to like try some stuff. Because I think what happens, at least in my experience and the people that I've like talked to and worked with a little bit, are we get so stuck in these patterns and routines, and then we hear like right now when I hear go lay on the ground, right, as an idea, it's something to me that I have no idea whether or not it will be nice, but it sounds like it could be nice. So I just wanted to highlight something that I believe in very strongly, which is like, if you're stuck on some certain thing or working through something, in my experience, you need to try maybe a couple different tactics, and then eventually you will land on one that goes, oh, this fits for me. Maybe I go dance a few times and it's not the right release of energy, but like go do singing. Speaking of which, personally, neither of these are the right ones for me. But, playing around with some of these things, I think, can make a big difference. And I'm glad that you brought that up.
Well, thank you. In fact, one of the things, Donovan, that I noticed in sharing what I've shared so far, is that this is all more of the personal things that people can do individually by themselves. Yeah. One of the things I notice that if I'm really in a deep funk, one of the great ways to shift my energy is to make a positive difference in someone else's life.
Oh, definitely.
And that's interpersonal. And in doing good for somebody else and making a positive difference in somebody else's life, there is this saying that giving is receiving. I think there's truth in that. And so that's also something very simple, that putting a smile on somebody else's face can, really put an authentic smile on mine and get me out of my story as to what brought me down.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had that same experience where I might be down about something, but then I realized I'm just so caught up in my own despair, but then and I don't want to do anything with people technically, usually, but the moment that I am with people and contributing to them, helping them, and it does pull me out of my own head and allows me to be present with people and actually receive that joy. To be able to make a difference actually is a profound way to shift that energy. I've experienced as well.
Yeah, that really is a good point, Alice. It's, you said getting out of your own head.
Yeah.
'Cause isn't that typically where all that contraction it's kind of command central. And there's a saying that I really like. I really invite people to, in fact, I created an online course called Give Yourself a Raise, which is all about raising your consciousness, your vibration, and your mood. And I did a little takeoff. You've heard of this fellow Eckhart Tolle, no doubt, right? The Power of Now. So I did a little riff off of that called The Power of Thou. And say, what are you deeply committed to in life? And to try to discern or discover what that is, I invite people to consider what your 3 favorite bumper stickers are. Because there is something about that condensed piece of either wisdom or irony or whatever it is that is actually a window to the soul as to why you like it so much and has information. And so I think one of my favorites is don't believe everything you think. And because that command central, the ego, the mind wants to know what's going on at all times. And if I'm feeling upset or kind of queasy or anything for any reason, the mind quickly wants to know, okay, what's that about? Oh yeah, it's because you think you're not good enough. Oh yeah, oh, you're worried about money. Oh yeah, you're worried that this gal's not going to like you, whatever it happens to be. And I just noticed that don't believe everything you think, for me, is a really one of my mantras. And so I'm inviting everybody to consider, what yours are as your kind of guiding lights, as also something you can choose to remember, especially in those moments when it's feeling kind of contracted.
Yeah.
I think those are very, very valuable. And I noticed you had another abstraction with the sun, or the way that you view the sun as a symbol for a couple different things. I think having some tools like that are super nice because they're really quick guideposts for being able to make decisions or get to a sense of connection or whatever you need, but in a more positive way, right? Like, for me, a lot of the times, I can't remember any of my mantras off the top of my head for some reason, but there will be times where I'm doing something and one will just pop into my mind, or, an abstraction a little bit different, but similar to what you're saying with the sun, where it just clarifies things for me so much or brings me into the moment so much more. But I want to share like a quick little story. There was a time where I was kind of playing around with mantras, and I took one from that I read somewhere word for word. And it was something like, I'm a king amongst men, or something like a little bit aggrandizing. And I tried it for a couple months, and I just kept using it and using it and using it, and I felt no effects whatsoever. And I was like, okay, mantras, right in the trash. These do not work. But later, and playing with it a little bit more over the years, I came to realize that if you find things that are true to you, that resonate with you and are genuine, they can be extremely helpful. So it really resonates with me to, spend some time figuring out which of these kinds of abstractions or mantras, or however you want to put it, really resonate with you, because they can make, they just show up, at least for me, like in random times of need, where it's like, oh, I'm really stressed out, I'm really having this, bad day or whatever, and then boom, don't believe everything you think, but something like that. And all of a sudden it just dissolves and it's wide open.
Right.
So I love it.
And I actually do find kind of opening up the field with a question. So I've done this podcast. Actually, I did one with Alice last week on my side, where I'm the host and I get to ask the questions. And it's called Reset. And the framework, we start with a quote that we live in worlds our questions create. Okay. And so asking that question, what are my choices right now? It opens the field up, where, yeah, you can be paying more attention to what pisses you off or is bringing you down and all of those things. And there are plenty of other things to pay attention to, or other things you can be doing as well. No wrong answer. It's just nice to know that we do have that inherent freedom, that freedom of choice as to what to pay attention to. And we follow that down the rabbit hole a bit. I think we're going to be smiling a lot more often.
So valuable and such an important lesson, because I think when we're angry or upset, it's like, that's all we see. Like, we think that's the only option that we have. But if you can take a step back and see that, no, you can focus on like why that person pissed you off. Sure. Or you can focus on like, do you really want that to ruin the rest of your day and carry it into your other relationships in your life? Or you can choose to let it go and move on to something else.
And you can use
better choice.
Right. And you can use your breath. You can use pay attention to the sun. You can use a drink of water. You can use all these other things to shift. The body has its own wisdom.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's like, okay, let's give the mental wisdom, such as it is, a little rest, and let the body communicate its wisdom, because it knows whether it's food or water or breath or sound or movement. All those things can move our energy field around a little bit, so it can create some more spaciousness.
Absolutely. Great. Well, Stu, we really loved having you on the show. You are just like this bright ball of energy. And we always love seeing that, help spread that light. Was there anything you would like to plug or share with our people?
Come to the website, onlythesource.com, noodle around. You can subscribe to the Reset video podcast on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/onlythesource. So that's our kind of parent company, and onlythesource.com is our website. And you can friend me personally on Facebook, Stu Zimmerman. You'll find me there, and I still have a few hundred people left before I max out. And and we're all in this together. And I'm really curious to see, how together we can raise our vibration, if you want to call it that, our emotional state, and really pass it on so that, just like that movie When Harry Met Sally, I want what she's having, that
It's my favorite movie, actually.
Is it really?
It is. My number one choice.
Such a great one. That scene in particular was such a classic scene that's really because we are interconnected. No matter how much we appear to be separate and distinct from each other, and we all have our stories, we all have our problems, we all have whatever we've inherited from our families, and etc., the good and the bad. Yeah. We are interconnected, nonetheless. Science tells us so. And we know even when we smile, that tells us so. And if you give somebody the finger, that tells you so. So that's something that we can be mindful of together as we raise our own vibration. We're not only doing it for our own experience of a good life or a happy life, but that we really get to bring that to somebody else as well. And it's really when everybody is vibing at that level that it can, we haven't been there yet, but my sense is it's going to feel heavenly. So let's aim high.
That would be incredible. And yeah, that's such an important lesson, especially right now with such despair and the whole global pandemic and a lot of people not being contracted as you described. And, what if we expand all our vibration and our energy? And what if we were all as bright and light as Stu?
And I'd like to add one more thing, especially in this time, as you brought up, Alice, with COVID, which is scaring people shitless. It's bringing up everybody's sense of mortality.
Right.
And for many of us, it's isolating us from each other.
Absolutely.
All of which can serve to lower our immune systems. Mm-hmm. So I'm really inviting everybody to do your best beyond wearing the mask and going into physical distancing to boost your immune system the best you possibly can. And the one thing I did forget to mention also is diet plays an important role in creating those neurotransmitters in your gut that the brain then sends out as distribution central when you do these other things. So if you go into McDonald's every day, no matter how well you breathe and notice the sun and everything, you may not have that inventory of neurotransmitters that really kick into the feel good and the feel great. So just notice what you're eating and do your best to be mindful around that.
Absolutely. Very, very critical and important. Changes the energy and shifts it. Great. Well, Stu, it was wonderful having you on our show. Thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be in conversation with you both. You have a great program. Oh,
thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. Well, we look forward to seeing what you create, especially if you get on Netflix. That would be awesome. I will definitely watch that.
Well, I'll let you all know when it occurs.
Awesome. Perfect. So thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you next time.
You can check out more content at howtohappy.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up to date on the videos. We've also got a Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook that you can check out. See you next time.